Expensive wheels, expensiver wheels, cheap bike. Does this even make sense? In this video, I'm going to share with you guys my experience with riding on some carbon wheels on some steel bikes for over the last year. Does it make sense if you're not a racer and just want something fun? Find out what I think in this video. Welcome back, Pathless Peddlers, and if you're new to the channel, if you're into the non-competitive side of cycling, gravel exploring, bike touring, the supple life, you have found your people, hit that subscribe button. So I have a bit of a confession to make. Over the last year, I've had a chance to ride on some nice wheels, and by nice wheels, I mean quite literally some very nice wheels. Two pairs of nice wheels, in fact. One is a wheel set from Irwin Cycling. It is their Aeon GX35, a nice lightweight 650B wheel set with an internal rim width of 24 millimeters and weighs at about 1,500 grams for both wheels and costs $1,600. And the other wheel set is this wheel set with Chris King R45D hubs, laced to NVG27 carbon hoops, 650B, fairly wide 27 millimeter internal width. And the weight of that wheel set is a ridiculous 1,300 grams, but it does come at a cost. This wheel set will set you back about $2,980. Let's just get the price discussion out of the way. Yes, both these wheel sets are expensive. There's just no two ways about it. It's kind of just what carbon wheels cost. Chris King NV wheel set is doubly expensive. A large part of that is because both the hubs and the carbon hoops themselves are made here in the United States, so there is an upcharge in terms of labor. These wheels aren't going to be for everybody. Heck, I didn't even think they were for me at the very beginning. I don't race, I'm not super performance oriented. But I do have to say, at the end of the year of riding both these wheel sets, I've kind of changed my mind. One reason it's taken me so long to create this video, even though I've had these wheel sets for about a year, is because I was trying to find a way to talk about just carbon wheels in general from the perspective of someone that doesn't race. It's obvious why you would want these performance gains, I think, if you were, a super competitive cyclist. I also really had a hard time trying to talk about the performance gains that I would notice. I don't have a power meter. Typically, that's how people would test these things. I tried to go down that route, but wasn't successful in getting a power meter. And at the end of it, I don't think it really made sense to me just because I typically don't ride to power. My power numbers would be pretty pathetic, I think. And I think for the purposes of this video, speaking to people who aren't also super performance oriented but do like a nice zippy bike, it might actually make sense to, have this discussion without a power meter. So I know that's going to make some engineers watching this video or super metrics oriented people crazy, but yes, we're going to talk about the qualitative values of these carbon wheel sets. So I had the Irwin wheel set on my polyvalent for an extended period of time. I had it on the Aventon. For the Chris King wheel set, I put that on my carbon warbird and rode a gravel event with it. It also spent a little time on my polyvalent, also some time on a specialized Sequoia, and also my Crust Bambora. So the first big question I had before these wheel sets even came was, would I be able to notice a difference, and to what degree would it be obvious? Would it be kind of a incremental change where, I really had to think about it to kind of tease out that difference? Or would it be so noticeable and so mind-blowing that it would just be really obvious? Putting the wheels on the bikes, on all the bikes, and comparing them with the stock alloy wheel sets, in both instances, the wheels made a huge difference. It was really obvious when I had the carbon wheels on there. The bikes just had all this pep that it didn't have before, and all the bikes that I had the wheel sets on generally climb better. I think the bikes where these wheel sets made the biggest and noticeable difference is when I put the Irwin wheel set on the Aventon bike. Again, kind of a portly, heavy bike, and the stock wheel set did no favors, but with that Irwin wheel set, the bike just came to life and was actually fun to ride. Likewise, when I was testing the Specialized Sequoia, not a bad bike in of itself, but the wheels were a little bit on the chunky side, and when I put the Chris King wheel set on there, it just transformed the bike from something that felt, stable, maybe a little bit pokey, something with a lot more noticeable get up and go. Interestingly, when I put the carbon wheel set on my warbird, I felt like the difference wasn't as stark. The bike was already fairly light, being carbon fiber, and the wheel set kind of, you could definitely sense there was an improvement, but it wasn't kind of that night or day difference that I had with the Aventon and with the Sequoia. Both these wheel sets took turns on the polyvalent. In both instances, the bike felt a lot more sprightlier, a lot quicker to accelerate and climb when compared with the stock alloy wheel set. So long story short, is there a difference? Can you notice it? Or is it kind of like the princess and the pea scenario? The answer is yes, you will notice it. I think depending on the bike, if you have a heavier bike or moving from a heavier wheel set, you will notice it more. It would be anywhere from the order of magnitude of 15 to 20 to 25%. Another thing I was really curious about was the durability of carbon wheels. So I've had both these wheel sets for about a year, and I didn't really baby them. I used the Chris King wheel set on the Warbird when we did that gravel ride in Idaho. It also lived on the Polyvalent for a while, and I took it on a tour in California. Since then, it's spent a couple of weeks on my Crest Bombora, and I've taken it on the gravel roads here in Missoula. For the Irwin wheel set, that's lived on the Polyvalent for most of the year, and I've been using it as a commuter wheel set, as a quick gravel rider around town, up in the local hills here. So both these wheel sets have seen daily use, and so far, no problems. I think for me, one of my big hesitations with a carbon wheel set are they would just explode if it got too hot or too cold or too bumpy or something. But so far, both these wheel sets have proven to be fairly durable. I think the biggest mental hurdle is, do carbon wheel sets even make sense if you're not a super competitive cyclist? If you don't race, if you're not into the watts and the grams and all the performance metrics, does it even make sense to buy a carbon wheel set? I think prior to this year, I would have said, no, it doesn't make sense. But after having ridden with the wheel sets over the course of the year, doing gravel rides and touring, I'm kind of changing my mind, actually. And here's the reason. Yes, I don't race. Probably a lot of you don't race as well. But maybe some of you guys have a bike where the geometry is dialed, it fits you perfect. You've tried to lighten it up as much as you can so it's kind of nice and responsive, and you've hit a wall. Short of having that bike recreated in a lighter material, I think the biggest thing you can do to improve the bike at that point, to give it a little bit more pep, to have it feel more responsive, is to upgrade the wheel set to something light, and light would generally equate to carbon. Just because I don't race doesn't mean I don't appreciate a bike that climbs well and accelerates well. So while having a carbon wheel set on something like the Polyvalent or even the Crest Bombora seems crazy at first, I actually don't think it is. I mean, these are steel bikes. It can only get so light. And I love the geometry of both the bikes, and getting a lighter carbon wheel set was a great way to just inject new life, inject new energy into those bikes. It's definitely not an inexpensive way to do it, but it is a way to vastly improve a bike that you may already love. So let's talk about cost and value. And this part's always really tricky. It's always really subjective. Clearly, if you don't have the money to buy the wheel sets, and these aren't even something you should consider. But if you do have the funds, if you are looking to upgrade the bike and are considering whether a carbon wheel set is worth it, I think these are both pretty good options for different reasons. First, I'm going to talk about the Irwin wheel set. Every tubeless tire I tried to mount on this wheel set mounted perfectly fine. One thing I loved about this wheel set is it came with all the things. It came with all the different end caps, quick release to through axle. It's center lock, and also came with a center lock adapter. So if you have a 6-bolt disc rotor, it's easy to adapt to that. So for $1,600, you do get the complete package. Okay, so let's talk about the Envy and Chris King wheels. These wheels are just ridiculous. They are so ridiculously light, and they made every single bike I put them on absolutely sing. One thing I do like about these hoops in particular are the slightly wider internal width. These are 27 millimeters internal. And I put various 650B wheels on this, and I do like kind of the wider profile that I got with these hoops. You put a 48 millimeter tire in here, and you get a true 48 in the widest part of the tire. It doesn't compress it, doesn't make it that weird bulbous shape. At the same time, I don't think it squares off the tire, so the handling is still fairly predictable. And did I mention these things are stupid light? So with the Chris King wheel set, just like the Irwin, you can change the axle from through axle to quick release. It is an additional kit, and there is an additional tool that you have to use to swap the axles. I also found that the hubs required a touch more care when putting it in the bike. There's actually some preload adjustment that you have to do when you put this on your bike. It's not super complicated, but it is something that you have to be aware of. I think probably the biggest downside for me in terms of this wheel set is when you're traveling, I like to take off the disc rotor, and to do that on the rear hub requires popping off this end cap. Again, not super complicated, but just another additional step. You can't just unscrew the lock ring and take the rotor off. Both Chris King and Envy have announced a lifetime warranty on all their products. So anything goes wrong with the hoops or the hub, they will replace it, they will service it, they will make it right. So yes, the upfront cost, the upfront investment of this wheel set is ridiculously high. But when you think about it, with that lifetime warranty, you basically have, a forever wheel set, which I think is pretty good. So again, between these two, this is a more affordable option, and it comes with all the end cap, the center lock adapter. So good value for the money. And for twice as much, you get a wheel set that is about 200 grams lighter, but probably most importantly has a lifetime warranty on both the hub and the rim. Expensive, but this could be like the ultimate high performance wheel set in your stable that you can have for life because everything's covered. Okay, so a year ago when I got these wheel sets, I definitely thought these aren't for me, I'm just playing dress up. But after riding with them, I actually really grew to like how they felt. And although some people wouldn't necessarily think to put carbon wheel sets on the steel bike, I actually think it's a pretty good match. You get kind of the lightweight stiffness from the carbon hoop, but that gets kind of mellowed out with the compliance from the steel frame. So in some instances, it's the best of both worlds. And I'm not saying, everyone should buy carbon wheel sets. Definitely it has to work within your budget and how you like to ride, and if that's important to you. But I have begun to change my mind on the notion of owning a carbon wheel set. Prior to this year, never would have crossed my mind. But now I can see where, it's a real tangible and noticeable difference in the handling of a bike. Probably the single most noticeable upgrade you can make to a bike. So, I'm gonna maybe start budgeting for a carbon wheel set of my own in the near future. But that's what I think. Let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think of carbon wheel sets? Have you tried one yourselves? Do you guys think it's worth the money? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and as always, keep the supple side down.